It does and it doesn't. I think it is. I think it's working. And I start every time I do this. This is how I start with. I think it's working. Okay, there we go. All right. Sit down and make this look as natural. All right. Okay, if you've been watching me, I call my show Data Points because I like data, but I haven't really talked about much data yet. That being said, this is a terrible intro. I'm here with Caroline Strecker, who just ran for House Representative here in Arizona. You did not quite make the cut, but I'm really glad you ran. You brought up issues that I think a lot of locals. Here's my serious thought on it. If every single household knew exactly what you were saying, knew who you were, and had the time to go out and vote, and the energy or the will, I think you would have won.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would have won. I think that
Yeah.
we're dealing, especially, I was about to mix especially and specifically, especially with Northern Arizona, you're dealing with a lot of libertarians.
Yeah, yes. Actually, I had multiple candidates, even from within the pool, that, we all talk to, well, most of us talk to each other and, congratulations, and just talk to each other after. It's like trauma bonding, politics. And so of course, I told, the winner, like, winners, congratulations, and we're just so glad it's over. Everybody was really exhausted, and the two winners had both even told me, they were like, Caroline, if you had really put in an honest, like, really hard effort, you would have won. You would have won.
Mhm.
And I kind of knew that too. We only had, I never asked for any donations. I was really not into the idea of endorsements. I truly believe that the one that it needs to come from are the people, are the voters. And there were a lot of rookie mistakes, like that I knew about, but wasn't really focused, because if it was the plan to go to Phoenix, I was open to it, but my children are still in school here. I didn't really want to uproot our life. I'm like opening up a business. So was my heart really in it to win it? No.
No, but you learned about the process.
I learned a lot about the process.
Abe Lincoln lost
Mhm.
when he first ran.
Yeah, learned a lot, and definitely have plans for the future. Yeah.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good, and because we need that.
Hmm.
And everything that I understand from people that came in and talked to me, there's some wild stuff going on in the Republican Party here,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's just here.
No, I don't
It's
think so either.
it's the same thing with some of the dealings that are going on in City Hall. You sit there and you go, man, if this is what it's like in a town this size, what's going on in Phoenix? What's going on in Chicago? What's going on in these places? And that we kind of just take for granted, and they treat it as, well, this is how the game is played.
Hmm.
But you can sit and look at it and say, but maybe this isn't supposed to be. Maybe this isn't optimal.
Correct.
Did you run into anything, and I don't want you to go negative, I don't want you to say anything negative if you don't want to. Did you run into anything that you thought, man, this is wild? Because I know for a fact that if I had Jennifer Esposito in here with us, she'd have some things to say about the Republican Party and the way things are going. Were you treated fairly?
Yeah, I think for the most part I was treated fairly. Of course, in the public's eye, I had like the typical mudslinging. And unfortunately, the only negative thing I'll say is particularly where it came from, and it was Havasu. I think that I'm a little bit more known in the Kingman area than Havasu, and I had really strange comments from even from within other people, like not in my particular race, but other campaigns, and that have a bit of more of a presence in Havasu. And I even had one person in particular just say, who I've never met, never had a conversation with, never came and I spoke with this person, but telling me that I just have no merit, that I have no leadership qualities. And to me, it just was, I laughed actually. I was just like, this is really pathetic. I was like, you really can't say anything. Like, you don't even know who I am. You've never talked to me. And so I kind of fired back and tapered down. I had to be diplomatic and polite, but the race is over. And so my filter is off. So I can be a little bit more myself, which is really, I'm very much comfortable
You feel
in
like
that.
a weight is lifted?
I do. I feel like my muzzle is off because there's so many things that I wonder, that I wanted to say for the past year and I couldn't. It was really hard.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It was real interesting watching people come out of the woodwork on Facebook when I first started having people on. And we even had something called the Mojave Insider mock us and say that our business was crumbling just for having people come on. And that's pretty wild. That's pretty hardcore. And I don't know if people realize that there's a concerted effort oftentimes among, how many people know the real difference between you and Rose and what's the other guy?
Mike Ganuccio.
Mike Ganuccio. I always get it wrong, so I don't want to say. How many people know where you guys stood on issues? How many people knew about his past in Kentucky? How many people know that you were a nurse who decided to forego your livelihood for principle, based on principle?
Yeah.
And that means something. I had the mayor in here and he said, at some point, because I brought up principle, and he said, and I didn't press back. I didn't want it to be a gotcha thing, and I didn't want to be rude. I was very appreciative, and I still am, that he even came in to talk.
No,
he
it's
didn't
a good
have
thing.
to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he did say something that struck me. He said, at some point, you've got to set us, and I'm paraphrasing, but at some point you have to set aside principle to get things done. And see, to someone who's libertarian leaning, you're sitting there going, no, actually you scrap it. If that's what it comes to, you say, no, let's start over.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't compromise the very things that keep our system running smoothly.
Correct.
In order to get what you think is most important in that moment.
Correct. Because then it just becomes a repetitive cycle. So you compromise, you have this stone foundation and you chip away at it. You compromise here, a little bit here, and it's a vicious circle. And eventually that's why we are in this predicament as a society, because that's the mentation as to why we have across many different topics, but why we're where we are now. Because we have set aside principle, morality, and a moral compass, and we have just compromised and gave. And now it seems as though people are kind of waking up, looking around, being like, "How did we get here?"
Well, and you and I were just talking about Nick Fuentes. Why is he so popular? People don't watch him. I don't watch him, and then they make judgments. I make judgments on him. But you're pointing out that part of the reason he's popular is because he's just simply saying we live in an immoral society and things have to change. And even though you say he's definitely wants to take it further than most people would ever agree with,
right?
There's something resonating there. And what's amazing to me is how many women, if you get on X, you go into any of the spaces and listen to people talk, it's not men that are like, yeah, Fuentes. There's this idea that there's a bunch of incels that are cheering him on, involuntarily celibate. The fact of the matter is it was mostly women that are really singing his praises, which fascinates me.
Yeah. And for the record, I try to listen. That was something that my dad had taught me. He says you have to listen to everything in order to form your own opinion and own conclusion. So I tried to get a wide span, and out of curiosity, I'm like, what's the deal with Fuentes, And I did. I sat down and I watched a couple of his episodes, one on the war on Iran. And I think that the part that he does have, I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but some of the things that he says, I'm like, he is just unapologetically linear, and he will tell you the truth. And it's just and then he'll back it up with some data points. So it's not like this is an opinion of what he believes. It's just based on either what has happened, a report, or some kind of data.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm like, I mean, he's got a point.
Yeah.
He's got a point.
Yeah, I should do more of that. I like to think about big picture stuff when I go live, and I'm kind of obsessed with a book right now called Behold a Pale Horse. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't.
Okay. It's kind of like the Bible of conspiracy theorists. A lot of stuff gets, pointed back to Behold a Pale Horse. And your father was an amazing scientist. I mean, to say the very least. Whether or not he had everything perfect, I don't know, and I kind of doubt it. I haven't had the time to do a deep dive on what he was looking into, but I'm about to for probably quite a while. It's timely right now. In fact, Dana Perino just made a joke making fun of Fauci about AIDS, which fell flat on Gutfeld, but I think she knows. I think people know what the real story is behind AIDS, and this might not be 100%. And when your dad, Robert Strecker, you can look it up on YouTube. It's been on YouTube for 15, 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even up to 50,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crime. It is. It's one of the, if nothing else, say he's wrong. Let's say your dad is wrong. Nobody has even put it out there and talked about it. And I don't think your dad's wrong.
I don't either, by the way. And that is something else that came about this is that I fully plan on taking. So right now, I cannot do anything with the Strecker Memorandum because Warner Brothers has the rights to it. So I fully plan on taking everything that he talked about, and he's my dad. I still have some rights and the ability to talk about him, and I'm going to create my own. And I'm going to do half of my dad's work on the AIDS and everything that he talked about, and then I'm going to do my aspect of it on COVID.
Yes!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Behold a Pale Horse. And when I found this, I think I texted it to you.
I think you did. You did, yes.
Let me see. Oh my gosh, okay, I'm not going to look for it. I'm not going to skim through it right now. I thought that I marked it, and I didn't. I marked something about the Vatican because that's my style. In Behold a Pale Horse, he states that AIDS was made in a laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the stuff in this book, Caroline, is insane.
William Cooper.
William Cooper, yeah. There's the beginning. He tells a little bit of his life and how he came across all these documents. And then on page 35 starts chapter 1, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And what Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and I've been talking about this for the past week, or last week, what it states is that at a Bilderberg meeting, they showed a paper and pretty much exclaimed that they had gotten computers to a level that they could create data points, create kind of a testing apparatus with data to do stress tests on society. And then they could affect things like commodities, black swan events. They could create these happenings that they said that they're no longer going to need bullets. They were going to have events that would then direct society the way that they needed it to go.
Sounds familiar.
Is that not interesting? Given what your dad talked about.
Yeah.
And let me go over what your dad talked about, and then I'll get back to the book real quick. So, and he was not the only one. There were a few doctors that when AIDS first came out, it's not like he was some crackpot.
No.
There were quite a few doctors and I think they communicated pretty well together.
I would imagine so.
But email was brand new. This was early 90s that he at least made the memorandum. These doctors all noticed that the AIDS virus, if you actually looked at the DNA of the virus,
Yep.
this virus supposedly came from a monkey. Is the story I grew up with.
Yep.
It's the story you grew up with.
Yep.
And they talk about it in the video. But when you look at the actual DNA of the virus, it's bovine
Mm-hmm.
and sheep.
Yep.
So cattle and sheep.
Which my dad does break this down. So
Yeah,
go
you
take
guys
a
need
peek.
to watch it. I'm gonna break it down a little bit just for my viewers, because it's anyway. I'm not gonna go into the weeds of it. You need to look up the memorandum, and I'll share it. And I'm gonna share it on the Facebook group whenever I post this on there.
That's fine.
But AIDS, what it does is it destroys T cells,
Correct.
specifically T4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what keeps you from getting things like, what is it? Pneumonia. It's a specific kind of pneumonia.
Pseudomonas. I have to check.
I have it in here, and I don't know where I put it, but it's a very. It became popularly known in the '80s because of AIDS, because a lot of people started getting
That's
this.
how eventually they would die.
This bizarre pneumonia.
Yeah, people do not die from AIDS, just to be clear. It's that it completely wipes out your immune system, so that as soon as you then, have any kind of exposure, and then you'll get ill, typically from pneumonia, and then you die from the pneumonia, not the actual AIDS virus.
Pneumonia or cancers,
Mm-hmm.
and that was another thing that this T4 cell was able to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
And sure as the world, what do you see? People, like you said, just they start dying from that. So he breaks down the fact that this DNA is from these two animals. He then goes in and explains that, because he made the point. He said, you go to AIDS scientists, and ask them, could you create a hybrid virus of these two? And they would tell you no. But he points to, in 1973, there were papers in 1966 and 73. Men are molecules, a tilt at molecular biology. And this is really important for what we're talking about.
Correct, yeah.
The human implications of what is going on in this sophisticated universe of this culture cells, bacteria, and the viruses, which can be grown at the expense of one or another, are at best dubious, at most frankly terrifying. This series of articles is designed, I believe, to persuade readers to think again about some of the current dogmas that have grown up in medicine, and not necessarily to offer alternate approaches. And that was the wrong one. We are, in fact, this is Jay Clemenson, was a leukemiologist, I think that's right. In 1973, he published, "We are in fact establishing conditions for a possible pandemic of an oncogenic virus varied on the scale of influenza of 1918.
Okay.
What does that sound like?
The plague?
COVID.
Yeah.
Well, remember the masks and everything?
Yes,
That's what they
yes.
did in 1918. It is possible to visualize the mutation of a virus into a variety of high contagiosity to man, resulting in a pandemic of neoplastic disease before we could develop a vaccine." Here's a quote from Henry Kissinger. And a lot of what we're about to talk about is the World Health Organization.
Mm.
Here's a quote from Henry Kissinger at the World Health Organization in a speech to the Council on Eugenics from February 25th, 2009. "Once the herd," and not cattle.
Yeah, not cattle.
And they talk about herd immunity. That's not like he's referring to us as cattle, but the scientific community has talked about herd immunity since anyone can remember. "Once the herd accepts mandatory vaccinations, it's game over. They will accept anything. Forcible blood or organ donation, quote unquote, for the greater good. We can genetically modify children and sterilize them, quote unquote, for the greater good. Control sheep minds and you control the herd. Vaccine makers stand to make billions, and many of you in this room are investors. It's a big win-win. We thin out the herd, and the herd pays us for extermination services." I've asked AI in the past. It said, "Oh, I don't know about this quote," but the number of different memes that have been made about it, the there's no variance in the quote. Could it be a fake or a fraud? Maybe, but to have it pinned down to the day and the meeting, the exact meeting, and I'm sure that I could go back and try to find whether or not that meeting exists. And it's just not that crazy. And this is what your dad goes into. He brings up the Tuskegee.
Yes.
The Tuskegee trials where they gave men syphilis.
Yep.
And then refused to give them antibiotics.
Correct.
And watched, they followed them and actually took notes.
Yeah, studied them.
Why does abortion exist at all? Why was Planned Parenthood created? To exterminate Black Americans. Eugenics. To exterminate Black Americans. Silent weapons for quiet wars is a Bilderberg thing.
Okay.
So you've got people that are considered to be enlightened from around the world are invited in because they're studied and they watch them to make sure they're not going to say anything in public. Peter Thiel is a Bilderberger. Quite a few of the, you're making a face. I like Thiel. He's kind of a libertarian. I'm a fan of his, but a lot of these other names, I'm not. And in fact, a lot of elected officials from around Europe, it's joint between European nations and the United States.
Makes sense.
And I think maybe Canada. But a lot of these people are elected officials. Sometimes they're royalty that are invited in to hear. But and thanks to Matt Drudge, they started actually posting their agenda of what they were going to talk about, but they never showed. There's no recordings, there's no notes, there's no press allowed, and yet they, if this document is real, this silent weapons for quiet wars, I mean, this was in 1979. I can't imagine where they've taken it from here. And what they now are attempting to control if they followed what's in this paper.
Well, I'm not going to say where I gave it or got it from, but the next time I come here, at the beginning of my campaign, I was given a manual. I think it was from 1968, if I remember correctly. I'll bring it. And it's from the United States military, and it is all about essentially how to control the general population. There's interference between publishing, mail, radio, TV, telephone, everything. Not necessarily about events, but there's certain tiers and how on a military aspect, it's essentially like a military psyops operation, and how at every level, what base you're supposed to do it, you know, how things are allocated, but every level of interference where the public loses all forms of communication and information transfer. And I mean, and that was in the 60s. And that's a US Navy manual.
And so when we look around and we say, man, nothing seems to make sense.
Correct. That's why we feel, you know, I think the public is like, we can't trust our government. So they're, you know, shaming us for saying, well, you guys are all conspiracy theorists. It's like, well, we're not. We just can't depend on you to tell us the truth. So we have to get it ourselves.
No, and how do you get it yourself if you can't even depend on what is supposed to be an independent media?
Correct. I get lately that there's these like Fahrenheit 451 vibes, you know, that they're trying to obtain all these books and they just want us completely electronically dependent and get our information on tech. And they want it. I told my family, I said, we are just collecting books. We are just now collecting books.
Yeah, no, you have to. The printed word. I was going to look into, and I this is kind of scary for even me to say out loud, but I was going to order Mein Kampf. I wanted to know exactly what was in the book, what was said. Hitler was a socialist.
Right.
I nothing worse. And it's really important right now, considering that we have socialists coming into power in America, and not only that, but a lot of them are Muslim.
I know.
And so we know exactly who they're going to be blaming for all of the ails if anything does go south. and we might be looking at something very, very bad.
Yeah, it's a recombinant version, and yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah, I ordered Mein Kampf, the Quran, some manuals from the Muslim Brotherhood, just because I want to see how these people think and what they believe in and what their perspectives are. And it is, even from the very little that I've seen, it is just horrific.
See, I
It
didn't
is.
order it because I didn't want to end up on another watch list.
I've
I've got to be on so many of them by now.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I've got a huge target, so it's just, it is what it is. And I'm
Good for you. Good for you.
yeah, no, I totally, yeah.
Well, given what Kissinger said in that, what's really interesting about this book is how they talk about humanity in general. And it is very much as though we are a commodity, or as some people say, chattel. So let me go over this real quick. And I've talked about this on last week. I talked about it quite a bit. The problem with stabilizing the economic system, as though, you know, if you're a student of British philosophy or Adam Smith, if you understand that economic systems can contain themselves, can stabilize themselves, and that was kind of what built this country.
Right.
Was not having a top-down authoritarian. Now, how long? In what brief moments in history have we had a gold standard where that was actually the case of what could take place? There's only maybe two, right at the outset of the country, and then during Andrew Jackson. But Jackson was so successful when he got us back to the what's that?
I was like, I like Jackson. There's some things that, you know, I'm like, but overall.
Well, and when you talk about economics, we call it the Jackson era because it was so successful. It was America's true golden moment, and we saw the aftermath of that in the early 1900s and up to about the 1920s, and then things kind of go wrong. But there's always a lag, and they even talk about the lag in here, about how when things get implemented, you have to wait a few years, and I'm going to get to that too. But this is really, really interesting. Number one, they say that war is one of the main tools for if suddenly you say the public starts to catch on that things aren't what they seem to be, or that you need the economy to get a boost, to get everybody happy and excited again. Yeah. Let me see. Other alternatives to war are open-ended social welfare programs or an enormous but fruitful open-ended space program. NASA. So they say the problem with stabilizing the economic system is there is too much demand on account of, one, too much greed. Which, greed's one of those fun things, like define greed and parcel it out from ambition.
Right.
You can't.
And we kind of talked, you know, right before we came live, I was telling Dave, I was like, you know, I feel like I have this, you know, almost semi-borderline dysfunctional ambition, but I think it's because I work in the ER, so I've just seen 15 years of death. I've seen a lot of death, and I think the result of that on my humanity, I've become very hyper aware that life is very short. And so just do not delay. There's no reason to delay because tomorrow really is not guaranteed. And while I'm still able to, mobile, functioning, capable, just get it done.
Yeah.
Just get it done. Don't put it off.
And ambition, the founding fathers created the checks and balances they did because of ambition. But the progressives that came along in the early 1900s, late 1800s, people like Woodrow Wilson, John Dewey, these guys, to them, ambition was something, again, natural, that as if you were the right person, then your ambition was good. but they got to choose who was the right people to be ambitious. That was their idea of it. And
Right.
this is kind of speaks to that. Too much greed and too much population. That's the problem, is too much greed and too many people. Well, what a ridiculous idea. If we hadn't killed 64 million unborn children since 1973, do you think that maybe somebody could have come up with a cure for cancer? We need AI and we need water so that we can cure cancer, right? Well, what kind of world would we live in had we not exterminated literally 64 million? And now we're told, not only do you need AI, you need these things, you have to bring in people from other countries to keep your economy running.
Right.
And then what do they put those people on? Social welfare programs, which can be used and utilized. The social welfare program is nothing more than an open-ended credit balance system, which creates a false capital industry to give non-productive people, isn't that nice?
It's true.
A roof over their head and food in their stomachs. This can be, well, yeah, I mean, this worked. They made it work. This can be useful, however, because the recipients become state property in return for the gift, a standing army for the elite. For he who pays the piper picks the tune. Those who get hooked on the economic drug must go to the elite for a fix. In this, the method of introducing large amounts of stabilizing capacitance, I keep getting this wrong, capacitance. They use analogies for electronic devices in order to explain things like energy flows, which for them is money.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some of that verbiage in here. Capacitance is by borrowing on the future credit of the world. This is a fourth law of motion, onset, and consists of performing an action and leaving the system before the reflected reaction returns to the point of action, a delayed reaction. And again, keep that in your mind, a delayed reaction. They go on. The same thing is achieved by a government by printing money beyond the limit of the gross national product, an economic process called inflation. Remember that inflation is only the act of printing money in excess of gross national product. They could blame it on the price of widgets or oil only because you never knew the real cause. The real cause and the only cause of inflation is the printing of more money beyond the gross national product. Goes on that this gives Americans a false sense of self-confidence, which a lot of people are saying the baby boomers are guilty of.
Sorry, it's true.
They must eventually resort to war to balance the account, because war ultimately is merely the act of destroying the creditor. Goes on. Since most of the general public will not exercise restraint, there are only two alternatives to reduce the economic inductance of the system. Number one, let the populace bludgeon each other to death in war, which will only result in a total destruction of the living earth, or take control of the world by use of economic silent weapons in the form of a quiet warfare, and reduce the economic inductance of the world to a safe level by a process of benevolent slavery and genocide. So we go back to what your dad was warning about. And here's the scariest part. This is easily, in my opinion, Caroline, if he's right, and I think he might be right.
I was about to say, I was like, it may not be with the AIDS virus, but the whole idea, again, going back to Fauci and this idea of gain of function and bioweaponry.
Well, yeah, and people tried to warn. That's in one of my notes. An attempt should be made to ascertain whether viruses can in fact exert selective effect on immune function by depressing 7S or 19S antibody, or by affecting T cells as opposed to B cell function. This was in a bulletin at the World Health Organization, the same place that Kissinger said what he said in 1972. So in 1972, and your dad points that out, he says, first, this has to be predicted. Let me show you where it was predicted that this was coming. And he goes back and he shows it. Then he says, now let me show you where it was requested. World Health Organization said, you know what we ought to start doing? Gain of function research. And what they would do, what happens? So if you take this leukemia inducing cell, this cancerous cattle cell,
Mhm.
and what they would do is he explains they would scrape off scabs.
Yep. Yeah. Petri dish and
Petri dish, and then you can take this the I keep forgetting the name of it, the VV sheep.
yeah, it was
Sheep
like
cancer. You then take the sheep cancer, you put it in there as well, you mix it up. He says every combination comes out. And some of them are incompetent, or as he
Right.
says, impotent.
They don't
can't
always work.
reproduce.
Yeah.
But there's oftentimes stuff that then, once it's sat in human tissue long enough, and he gave 2 or 3 papers way back then, 2 or 3 papers showing that those viruses that come out of it, then they can't even go back in cattle. They are specific to humans.
Mhm.
So these viruses,
they adapt, they mutate, and they evolve.
that's gain of function. The part that scares the crap out of me. He goes on to show that a news article from Great Britain of someone who worked with the World Health Organization, a researcher that took his story to the London Times, saying that he was hired by the World Health Organization to go see how this smallpox vaccine, how it was affecting people in terms of giving them AIDS. So right there you have where they've, and this was in the 70s, they had a vaccine that they knew was giving people AIDS by calling it a smallpox vaccine. He talks about Tuskegee and the Bad Blood book, which I've heard of, by James Jones. And he does make the point, could it be accidental? And he says,
Of
yeah,
course.
it might be accidental. But
this was not accidental.
when you were, well, the Kissinger thing,
Yeah, this was not accidental. Was COVID accidental? Of course not.
all of the lies that we know Fauci for a fact that he told.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the scariest part. You might, and your dad really drives this home, you might not know that you have this AIDS for 14 to 20 years
Yes.
before it kicks in,
Yes.
and that cancer, that turbo cancer. So we hear about myocarditis going up thousands of %.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about turbo cancer.
We hear about
rates,
cancer. Yeah.
and cancer in general rates going up. Number one, do you think there's a chance that people have AIDS that have no clue that they have it through things like blood transfusions and whatnot?
Yeah.
And number two, do you think that this COVID vaccine could be a ticking time bomb?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, what do we do?
We won't know. We won't know for another 5, 10, 15 years. We just have to watch what's happening. Obviously I'm, involved in the, medical field and the healthcare aspect. So I'm watching, but I have, and not just cancer, but women who have infertility issues. I just went to Pilates, and, one of the ladies that was there, she was telling me, she was like, I got prophylactic mastectomy because my estrogen is so low and nobody knows why my estrogen, I was just listening, and, she's like, I don't know why my estrogen is just so low and I can't take anything hormone stimulating because I have such a risk of cancer. And I have, again, and I think we talked about this last time, but I have people that will reach out to me, friends, and people who come for curbside consults. And, they'll just say, like, Caroline, I can't get pregnant. Something is wrong. Nobody in my family has this issue. My mom, my grandma had 6 babies. Like, what's wrong with me? And we just kind of try to rule things out. And then it's really awkward getting through the entire list. And then it's like, I don't know.
I think I want to say stillbirths are up 430%.
Mm-hmm.
And
I miscarriages. I have young girls, 19, 20, first pregnancy, miscarriage.
Miscarriages are up about the same, I think. And so we're heading into uncharted waters, and the media is talking about, I don't know what the media is talking about. What is the media talking?
I mean, in the time that I saw you, RFK has come forward talking about Lyme disease and all these other gain of function diseases that have been essentially bioengineered and manufactured.
There's a whole story behind Lyme, and but yet you still can't, especially if you go to somebody with one of these diseases and try to say, hey, you realize you're a victim of the federal government, or even maybe multinational groups toying with life itself. Like you can't do it. You cannot do it. People get very upset. It's very, I don't know.
Well, they can't wrap their mind around it, and then two, what are they supposed to do about it?
And maybe that's it.
That's it. Like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Who can I blame?
Yeah. Your dad points out, where does he? I took a lot of notes.
I see that.
No, he makes the point, and it's one of it. I mean, it's very Michael Crichton.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Michael Crichton fan. In fact, I think most of his books are about this idea. And I took the note of exactly what your dad said. I can't find it.
We'll use this part for the other video.
All right. Hey, he says it doesn't matter if you're a creationist or an evolutionist. Personally, I'm both.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my dissertation. I used a lot of evolutionary theory in it. I love it. I grew up. My dad is one of the most brilliant physicians. One of the most brilliant people I've ever known. He raised me to understand a lot of why things are the way they are.
Correct.
And a lot of it's ugly. It's not fun to talk about.
Yeah. Even Darwin, he how he came to where he was before he wrote his books, and anyway, but
well, and even Darwin, I heard a story, and I tried to tell this to the professor, to a professor. I'll just put it that way. Tried to tell this to a professor that was very well read in evolutionary psych. I said, but he was never a believer, and that didn't bother me, but I would throw things out there. I was like, Darwin died a Christian, right? No, I have never heard that before, but he did. He died on his deathbed. He gave his life to Jesus. And
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
From what I understand. If I ask AI, I'd probably be like, well, there's no real proof, but there's a lot of things that I know to be true that when I go to AI, can't find it, or I just have false memories, and if that's the case, then it's fine. But Darwin, from what I understand, did die a Christian, and I don't think he ever went back on his beliefs, and you don't have to choose one or the other. And but your dad in the 90s, it kind of was that way. In the early 90s,
one or the other.
It was kind of one or the other. And I grew up with an ultra Catholic mom and an ultra agnostic father, and so I'm right there in the middle. Your dad makes the point. He says it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which you are. If you are a creationist, you look at people that want to do this kind of work and you say to them point blank, what makes you think that you get to toy with God's creation this way? Who do you think you are? And if you're an evolutionist, it's the exact same thing. You look at them and you say, your dad says hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. If you go back to our earlier ancestors, you're looking at a million. You're looking at 1 million years of evolution. And you have to say, do you think that this modernity that we're fed is this amazing miracle? And in so many ways it is.
Right.
But do you think...
Not relative to the destruction of life, though. Yeah.
Exactly. Where do you stand on it? Where do you stand on the evolution God and what's happening now with us toying with these things?
Oh, I mean, again, I think that society has a completely broken moral compass, and I totally agree with my dad. I asked him, before he passed, I was just having a conversation with him, just being like, I asked him, I was like, Dad, are you a believer? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I had to ask him. And
It
I was
wasn't
like,
dinner table talk.
no, it was, yeah, it was like a casual moment. I think we just went for like a walk or something, but it was bothering me. And I was in my early 20s at the time. And I just was like kind of scared to ask my dad, but I asked him, I was like, are you a believer? Do you believe in God? And he told me yes. And I just felt this like wave of relief because the most important people, like some of my own personal heroes throughout time, we talk about Darwin, Charles Lyell, I loved Mozart and he was a believer. Isaac Newton, believer. So you're telling me that all of these mathematical, scientific, artistic geniuses of our past, they're all believers, but not me. I know better. I know it all. And I'm just going to say there is no God. God's not real. And that I'm the ultimate creator. No.
No. And right now, this is, I've been pro AI, and then I'm watching this Strecker thing and it hits me. I'm like, oh shit. Because, well, what does this book say? It says that they use black swan events. Mm-hmm. One of the most interesting quotes I've ever heard, and it was on a book about Jeff Bezos. And he said something along the lines of, I'm not really interested in systems, or I can't remember exactly what he said. And Jeff Bezos was actually pinpointed as a genius as a child. There was a book. He was in a book about genius children. Which brings in a lot of questions for me about, are specific people groomed to be who they are when we see them?
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Charles Kirk. Yeah. And Bezos was the same thing, where he was kind of estranged from his parents and grew up, I think, on his grandparents' farm, I want to say, out in Texas.
Okay.
And so anyway, we won't go into that. But he said, I'm really interested in black swan events. And so when COVID hit, who benefited more than anyone? Who was tailor-made, set up to serve the people and keep us compliant, happy, fed? Amazon. There was no, you can't get your whatever you need, and they still had the 1 hour delivery going in Henderson during COVID, especially, and that stuff fascinates me, because who all is going to these types of Bilderberg meetings? Mm-hmm. According to Eric Weinstein, who's a brilliant man, and I'm kind of a fan, he says there are secret societies that are so secret that you don't know their name. They don't have a name. Mm-hmm. Well, if this is Bilderberg, and we even get the guest list of Bilderberg, what other meetings are going on that are directing humanity in specific directions? And it goes back to 1913, when we get the Federal Reserve, the direct election of senators, 17th Amendment, and what was the other one? Income tax becomes legal. So the Federal Reserve is created, income tax, direct election of senators. All three of those feed one another. And they all happen under Woodrow Wilson in 1913. And what did these progressives believe? What did Wilson, Dewey, Goodnow, what did these guys say? That the Constitution now needs to evolve. And they took, in fact, Wilson himself stated that the Constitution, as it was set up, he called it Newtonian. It worked like a clock, like a machine. But he and his fellow graduate students from Johns Hopkins, which was a German philosophical school, they had become Darwinian in their thought. And they wanted to make, and I'm going to point this out to you, not to put you on the spot, but you did say that the Constitution was a living thing, mm-hmm. which is not something a lot of libertarians like to hear. But that was the point these progressives made, was they said, we need to make the Constitution a living, evolving thing. Now, I agree with that in terms of can we evolve it back to what it was personally?
Yes, not change it though. So let me put that caveat in.
Okay.
I think it is under like the Bible, it is almost a near perfect word. It cannot be changed, manipulated. It needs to be in its original, and that's where, and I feel sorry for the Supreme Court. Like it must be really, there's a lot of pressure to interpret the original text and all of that. I feel sorry for them. And there's very few of them that I trust. But not to change it, it's that society is always changing. So it's always going to be different for society, but not the actual word itself.
Yeah.
So you cannot change it, manipulate it, evolve it. It is almost perfect the way that it is. So yeah, it's not that I believe that the Constitution needs to change. It's that society just needs to do better.
I just want to put you on the spot.
I know.
At least
I was
once.
like, whoa.
This has been softball stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It's where do you think that this is headed? JFK is pointing out that Lyme disease and some of these other things are gain of function, and so it's slowly trickling out the truth that a lot of people have known for a good while.
Yeah, suspected,
yeah, and now, I mean, give me a break. Tell me the timing isn't something else that within 10 years of them starting to talk about, oh, we need to get used to eating bugs. Let's think about eating bugs. That now suddenly we have alpha-gal come out, another tick-borne virus that makes it, gives you a beef allergy, where you can become very, very ill by eating beef after you get bit by alpha-gal. What a interesting and bizarre disease. And so I'm to the point where I do not think that these things are escaping from labs. I just don't. In this book, he points out, or in the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, at this Bilderberg guy, he points out, you gotta throw stuff out there to get them fighting amongst each other while you do these things.
Yeah, look over here, but not over here.
And I think, my parents, I was just in Henderson, and they watch Fox News at night, and they're still talking about the Wuhan lab versus the bat versus the pangolin. And this is the game in and of itself.
Yeah.
And it gets people sitting at home going, well, I mean, he's right. They know it's duh. That's the whole thing, is you think they're feeding on Americans, on humanity's pride, where you sit there and you go, I am smarter than what they're saying. And then they throw someone out there, and they never point out the fact that it's a ridiculous notion to begin with.
Right.
So let's get past it and start talking about the real weeds. Let's get into the weeds of the matter. But instead, they throw things out there. They get people arguing about things that are completely inconsequential.
Right. What difference does it make?
What difference?
It's here.
Yeah.
And we have to fix it and deal with it. And
it's most likely on purpose. It's
a distraction.
Donald Trump shows up. You're telling me that's just happenstance? And then if you got a tinfoil hat like I do, I've got a nice one. I went all in. You read QAnon. I read QAnon. Was QAnon real? Was it fake? Was it controlled opposition? I don't have a clue.
I was like, I don't really know.
Well, I stayed on top of it like a fly on a turd. And I'm telling you right now, when COVID hit, I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Because I had read QAnon. I was on there every day waiting for the next drop. And it kind of laid out, hey, there's something coming, and just stick together. But again, why would whoever made QAnon not stop that thing from happening? Was this a part of a revelation that we all have to go through? Is this growing pains of waking up to the fact that we've been manipulated maybe for 100 years?
Oh, easily. Yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
I think that the days are over of, this missile comes here and that missile comes there. I think that we're entering a new a new phase of fighting where it will be, AI and drones and biowarfare, and it's going to be like an economic war, a cybersecurity war, a biowarfare kind of weapon. I don't think it's the, guns out. There will of course be military combat and bombings and whatnot, but I think that it's going to be a different stage, a different era of warfare, and it's scary.
Did you catch Tucker Carlson talking about his 10 points of what America needs? One of the most interesting aspects of it is he says, how long can this economy run on surveillance, war, and processed food or something, something to that degree where I guess, he's pointing out, you get a Carrington event, which the Carrington event happened while we at least still had telegraph wires, and those telegraph wires lit on fire. And he didn't go into the Carrington event, but this is what I think about. If our entire economy is based off of electronics, surveillance, and medications that lead to more medications that lead to more medications, and I don't have to tell you, but all it takes is a solar flare to bring it all crashing down. And then what is America?
Well, I mean, look at we are down in our oil reserves. We have no oil. We have limited fuel. We just had to ship. President Trump had to pull 300 million tons of foreign beef, unmarked foreign beef. So we have no food.
I didn't even hear that one.
You didn't know that one?
No.
Yep. So we have that coming. So our food supply has been stunted. Our energy production is zero. The reason why we're not feeling it at the gas pump is because on an international level, everybody is contributing from their reserves. But we have no fuel. We have no food. Our water, we have limited water. And Tucker's, I just felt like I agree with his plan, but I think that it's almost somewhat catering to the Democrats because they're very kind of semi-flowery. Tucker seems like a nice guy, but when you say like we have to be nice to each other and we have to, I'm just kind of like, Tucker, I just wish it was a little more like a 10-point plan. Like, I'm sorry, but we need to deport 20 million illegals. We need to deport 20 million illegals. If we can alleviate that financial crunch on the American people, hello, it's going to, talk about resources, housing, food, fuel. And so that I just wish it was a little bit more astringent.
Well, especially when it's a lot more than 20 million.
Oh, more than that, minimum.
What if the socialists, their end game is to try to create civil war, and then they get to call in the UN helicopters, and we become, in their minds, these anti-colonialist types.
Right.
We're getting our just desserts for every war that we've gone out. What if America is so guilty of these sins that the left is now going to point to them and say, come on in and take over these terrible people? Is that not a fear of stuff like the World Health Organization, considering we are the world? I mean, let's be honest. Anything that has been funded by us up to this point. Is this, if there is revelation, if the Epstein files are released, is that going to create hatred toward us, that if we go to civil war, the only way that anyone will ever invade us is if we're already fighting ourselves.
Right.
If we get into a position of civil war, and so my thing, I wonder, does Tucker not believe what you say? I hope he does, that we need to, but is there another side to it of, in this book, he makes the point, you got to keep people fighting each other.
Mm-hmm. Distracted, fighting.
Yeah, and as long as we're fighting each other, we're not looking up at who's holding the strings. Do you think that we can coalesce? And it would have to be people who are already American citizens. Do you think that we could coalesce as citizens and ever fight back. And that's where we could find the unity. Because I do agree with him that Americans need to unify. This idea that when you find out that someone, an acquaintance that you've liked for a long time, doesn't agree with you or hates Trump, and suddenly, well, I'm not gonna associate with them as much, or I'm gonna even in your heart looking down on them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, if we can get over that, is that not a good thing? Or do you think that they are so corrupt? You were just talking about how humanity, we're reaching a point of evil in society. Are we actually? Or is that what the media is feeding us? Because you were saying that Fuentes was talking about this woman that I guess, killed her children.
Yeah, Lindsay Clancy.
Lindsay Clancy. Yeah, I'm in my own world. I'm reading books. Trying to. Do they want us talking about that so that we do look around and say, all is lost anyway?
Well, so I was interested in Lindsay Clancy. For those of you who don't know, she is a former labor and delivery nurse. So that was important to me, that she's a registered nurse who murdered her children brutally. She strangled, turned them over with an exercise band, strangled from the youngest to the eldest. So that's kind of why I talk about there is something really inherently evil about that you take the youngest infant, who I believe was like 8 months old, strangle that child, which takes approximately 4 minutes to suffocate, while the elderly two are having to watch in that time. And it talks about postpartum psychosis, and this is a diagnosis that I do give pretty frequently on the regular. Psychosis, not postpartum psychosis. But that, there's a lot of talks, Spencer Pratt, I just watched a video on him, and he came out saying something similar, that society has they've been, I think the movie that he talked about, it was with like Susan Sarandon, Dead Man Walking. And it was sympathizing with a murderer. And then, there was the series called Dexter, which was, a big phenomenon, a major hit about a serial killer, that you sympathize with the villain and you're almost willing to forgive that he killed people for the right reasons and that it was acceptable. And then now here we are, and we have a mother who, horrifically murdered her children, and that there are women who are sympathizing with her and raising $1 million to defend her and like sticking up for her, saying that she was a victim of the system. And I wholeheartedly, as a clinician, I wholeheartedly disagree that she is not some victim of the system, that she is responsible for the murder. She is a murderer. Yeah. And there's no argument, no forgiveness for that. She, if I had it my way, unfortunately, and this is probably really scary and brutal, but I would imprison her for probably 20 years. And then in society back then, they would just execute her.
But make her suffer and think about it and give her time to find God before she goes and makes him. And yep. No, that's kind of how I feel about pedophiles.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. And speaking of that, how much media now, I just saw, what's her name? Olivia Rodrigo's latest album has her dressed up like a 3-year-old girl, and she's next to what looks like they even maybe made the swing oversized so that she looks tiny. I could be wrong, but her latest album, at least an ad for it, was her next to a swing with little girls' clothes. Yep. And that Sabrina Carpenter looks like like a John Benet Ramsey, and then they put her in these outfits. I, being the conspiratorial mind that I am, I thought, they're trying to get us ready for Islam and for child bride type stuff to make it legal. But I don't know that it's not darker, that they're trying to actually get in people's minds I don't know. Have you ever read about MK Ultra? Sirhan, some of that stuff?
Yeah, well, I'll have to tell you something off camera, but yeah, yes, I have heard of MK Ultra, and 100% that. And again, this is in really, really small amounts. If you chip away at the foundation, it's the concept of the boiling frog, and if they can acclimate society, then all of a sudden it becomes normal.
Yeah, that's an Incubus' song warning. He sings about the boiling frog, and that we're all boiling and we don't realize it, and then when we do realize it, it'll be too late. We'll be belly up.
I mean, can you imagine, so all those people that you just named, Sabrina Carpenter, Olivia Rodrigo, and then I forget the third one, but these are former Disney stars who are now pop stars that the preteen teenagers and young 20-year-olds, they all listen to them.
We're being attacked on every level. Especially psychologically. And again, get back to this. These are things that are insatiated in the brain because they have been normalized. Especially specifically for Europeans, for people of European descent, we are all about structure. And how do you know that? Well, you look at what we built. And go to Europe and look at how things were built. Look at not only how beautiful the cathedrals are, all that. What is that? That's a product of a nuclear family. That's a product of the nuclear family. You start with that foundation, that institution. And from that institution, if you respect it, you can build other institutions that mirror it.
Correct.
We are now having our nuclear families, we're under attack. We're under attack like never before. And a lot of the people that are being brought in from nations that have never built anything. If you understand evolution, if you understand co-evolving, you understand that we're bringing in people that may not appreciate on any level what got us here. And the founding fathers actually wrote about it. They said they planned on this country bringing in Europeans for as long as they understood. And they said that's the only way this works, because we understand that we created these institutions.
These are Western values.
These are Western values. And it's not to say, oh, I don't like that person. I think that they're any less of a person. It's just to say, hey, I really wish that my kids could go run and play in the street the way that I did in the 80s.
Right.
And I feel like I'm losing that. And it wouldn't matter who you were bringing in, what they looked like, if they didn't understand how to assimilate, or not even how to assimilate, if they don't appreciate the institutions that exist. You've got nothing. And then you couple that with having media seemingly, in my opinion, MK Ultra us on a mass scale. And you couple that with poor diet, processed food, dopamine, just becoming a dopamine addict in every way possible. And again, the institution of the family is being attacked from all sides. And that is what gives us the better things in life.
Correct.
So what's the answer? You've got to figure it out. It's up to you.
Me?
Yeah, it's up to you.
No. I mean, what you're doing, Dave, is that we're talking about it. We're aware of it, trying to have other people become aware of it. And, I wasn't even really necessarily in tune with it till maybe about like 4 or 5 years ago. When my son was COVID, I really he was in kindergarten, and I just knew, I was like, this is like my son's kind of generation of my 9/11. And now here come all these, this is for your protection nonsense, and this is for your benefit nonsense, and this is what's good for you nonsense. And Yeah, I asked him actually the other day, we were having a discussion about gun control. And, I was asking him, I was like, Noah, what do you know about, the Second Amendment? And do you feel as though we should allow, the population? And what do you think about gun control? And what do you think happens when guns are removed? And initially he was like, yeah, I think that school shootings are bad. And so maybe guns should go. And then I started talking to him about Australia and Mexico and even in European countries. And so then he was like, "Oh no, yeah, we can't have that."
And when people, it's tough when the media is everywhere you look, when the screen is in your pocket, and you can, and again, this is part of the reason that I have to cut it out. I don't know about this woman. My wife tried to tell me the other day, and I was like, okay, I don't need to hear any more.
It's painful.
It's very, very painful. And for me, when they were masking the kids, that was painful.
Yeah.
To know what I knew about science, to have the dad I did that was like, it's not affecting children. It doesn't make sense. And yet you run into people. I went to Costco and I refused to wear a mask and they kicked me out, but not before I really let everybody have it that was in there, because it was on the day that they decided in Nevada they were going to start masking children. And I just started telling people, I said, what are you doing? You're going and you're living your life while children are being suffocated by the state.
Mm-hmm.
Here at Costco's still open. They sure made sure that could stay open. These mega corporations, they sure get their way. And in fact, they did record numbers during COVID. Who would have thought? So you can still go and touch the fruit.
Right.
And then have somebody come up behind you and grab it.
Or go have massive riots on the weekends because, the viruses take a break on the weekends.
And Fauci refused to denounce those. When he was interviewed, this was on Adam Carolla, and I mentioned it to you that Carolla interviewed, I always forget his name, Rob Schneider. He interviewed Rob Schneider, a local fellow Arizonan, and they played tape of Fauci saying, oh well, I'm not going to get into politics. What? That's been everything you've done since day one, since you showed up, and now, after reading about what your father worked on and hearing about watching this little gremlin, this itty bitty gremlin man plead the fifth when oh, I wasn't talking about your dad. Jesus. No. You gave me a look and I was like, no, Fauci is just the most disgusting little creature that ever walked. And to have him, the highest paid bureaucrat in the country, maybe in history, refuse to answer very basic questions, you got to wonder, what else is he guilty of? And so when he's out there and he is using, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go into it. Racism is a natural byproduct of disease avoidance, according to evolutionary psychology.
Okay.
Racism is a byproduct of disease avoidance. So, if you want to stoke in-group, out-group preferences in somebody, one of the ways that you can do that is make them think about disease. Make them think the disgust. Disgust is one of the most primal instincts in humans. Smell is the first, was our very first sensation. They think that's why the nasal cavity goes directly to the brain. You had to be able to stay away from rotting meat, from specific things in order to survive. Everything's about survival. And our brains have not evolved much in 10,000 years, although they might be de-evolving really quickly right now. We're seeing a lot of idiocracy stuff coming true. And so if you want to stoke racial divide, and in order to keep the silent weapon working, you need to stoke racial divide. You need us pitted up against each other. And what's the easiest way to do that? Specifically, if you're the types of people that view humanity the way they do, and I'm sure these are all fans of Margaret Sanger, you bring up disease. So is it not interesting that there were two people villainized during the AIDS epidemic? Blacks
Gays.
and gays and
Mhm.
homosexuals. And those people were made to, and it's right around the time, 80s. Nobody did. I have a theory that no one did more for racial relations than Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan did
Mhm.
more for race and white people loving black people than anybody.
I agree.
There's
goat.
these he is. There's these people, and Kobe Bryant's right there.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah. But there's these people that through the free market, through excellence, through hard work, exemplify something, and that's what America is.
Yeah.
You look at that. In fact, I think that's part of the reason they were able to bring so many people into Europe. Was I think Europe has an envy of America's ability. We went to Golden Corral this past weekend. I saw every race, every background, every age, every demographic imaginable in there. Everyone was smiling at each other. Everyone was cordial. I saw, there was an old man that knew one of the Hispanic workers there, and I mean, they're giving high fives, and I'm like, Vegas is America. This is what it's about. We don't care. And I think Europe is so envious of the fact that we naturally are raised amongst other people that just all we give a shit about is excellence, right? And merit.
Your merit, work ethic, drive, that.
But what does that do? What does that do? That creates avenues for people to come out of nowhere and to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that the aristocracy hates more than competition. And so when they talk about people, they talk about greed in this book, in the Silent Weapons. They talk about greed of people, if that's what they've got to quash. Greed is the ambition of the people that they would rather be put on the government dole. And so how do you keep it going? How do you keep it going? You stoke racial animosity. And how do you do that? Well, one way, again, if they're going to be doing, it's like Kissinger said. Kissinger worries about population control, very obviously, and he always has. He's a big-time war guy. Has always worried about population control. And what does he say? He says, hey, if we do it through vaccines, we do this through vaccines, not only is the onus not on us, well, you took it, but then you guys not only make money from the vaccines, then you get to make the pills and the vaccines to handle what happens in the aftermath of the vaccines. And so why not make money while you do it? Why not attach these different attacks from different angles? And what I think we have seen done is not only did Fauci use AIDS to create animosity toward homosexuals and blacks, but I think then during COVID, what happened directly after COVID? George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And do you not remember how strange Chauvin was when he was on the neck? The look on his face, the strange mannerisms.
Just stoic.
Doesn't it make you wonder? Does it not make you wonder if the whole thing wasn't part of this silent weapon? As a tinfoil hat guy, now granted, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but as a tinfoil hat guy, you have to wonder, did they not then you hit the amygdala, the fight or flight, with the disease, and then you go straight to racial politics. And you do it in a way that these guys said you have to do it, which is you 1, 2, 3. You hit them with one. Before they can think about that, they're hit with another. Before they can process that, they're hit with another. And now the new thing is AI. So before we've even been able to go back and really hold people accountable for COVID, our newest threat that is going to destroy the world. Wait, how much time we got? We got a little bit of time. Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing all the talking,
No,
and I
it's
am
okay.
so sorry.
No, it's okay.
But I want to get your take on this stuff because I feel like I'm reading it going, oh man, but I can't really. I don't know many people that are open to hearing about it. Where was I?
AI.
Oh, AI. So I've been pro AI. I've been pro Peter Thiel forever, and I followed him and Elon from PayPal days because part of the genius of why do so many people have the ability to have a small business? Those guys actually created a platform and a way for people around the country to build up small businesses. And then they had, you had the lack of interstate of taxes if things were going across states. And so you had a lot of people making good money that the government couldn't get a hold of. And it created so many millionaires around the country, maybe around the world. And when these guys then suddenly pivot years later, decades later, and they're in AI, I naturally kind of trust it. But Elon did say that it's more dangerous than the nuclear bomb. Well, now I'm beginning to get it. Elon posted a video of a monkey trying to nail in a nail to a piece of wood. And I mean, it's doing its damnedest. Like I think it's either a chimpanzee or an orangutan, and it's doing its damnedest. And he put, this is what us using Mythos looks like from Mythos's perspective. And I've got a friend that's like, yeah, it can cure cancer, but what can it create? And so now we know, and again, it doesn't necessarily even have to leak out. If this gain of function stuff, if what your dad said, the way he made it sound, someone could do this in their backyard if they really had a clue. If they had a biology background, they could do this type of stuff in their backyard. They could create viruses in little petri dishes.
Oh yeah, we just had a biolab in Vegas discovered.
What?
Oh yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
They found like 300 viruses in some home lab in Las Vegas.
You're joking.
Mm-mm.
Well, and imagine if someone wanted a terrorist to you find somebody who's been MK Ultra'd enough, or someone who is legit just off their rocker, or religious extremists who don't have to be off their rocker, and you give them something like Mythos, they get a hold of it and they know how to run it without anybody noticing or seeing. Or just even more basic than that, it doesn't even have to be something that could kill everyone on Earth. It could just be something really bad.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've thought about? Because you were very like, I don't know, you're not a huge fan of the data centers. And do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure, we can. I do love AI. Do I think that we need, the amount that they are trying to put in? No. I think the Utah, the Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, I think his name is, wanting, I think it was 84,000 acres for a data center. I'm not for it.
84,000 acres. That's incredible. See, and I'm more like, I looked at the data briefly, or maybe I asked AI about it, which that's a mistake. but the guy, if it has self-preservation in mind, the data that I saw, 24% of the water usage is going toward things like them growing alfalfa out here for the UAE, and these weird things, for the pistachios, water that, from what I read, hundreds of years, or not hundreds of years ago, about 100 years ago, when they were looking at these aquifers, they said this will last us hundreds of years. But they didn't ever foresee them using it for agriculture. Now you compare that to AI and the proposals, it looks like it's going to be more like 1% compared to 24%. Now, is that accurate? I have no clue.
I don't think so.
No.
There's citizens, and I'm just more so about hearing what people have to say and what their experience is. But like people in Virginia, they just recently had an AI data center, and now this woman, she's like turning on her faucet, and it is just brown water coming out of her sink, and she's like, what am I supposed to do? She's like, even if I replace my plumbing, it's not going to change the quality of water.
Is it really that bad?
Mm-hmm.
But then do you think that it's then a psyop against Republicans when AOC, you know, who has said that 12 years ago said that the world would be ending now
because of climate change?
Yeah, because of climate change. Is it a psyop to have? Do you think they send her out to actually show real problems? Because she had the dirty water on her.
Oh yeah.
Thing, and then that's a psychological thing where it's that social identity theory. It's in group, out group. She's my out group. Everything she says, I'm going to scrap it, and I will not believe it. And this is I think what Tucker was getting at with the need for a new party, a party that is honest about everything that it can be, and not driven by only profit. That ethics, that morals play in somehow. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is at this point.
I think because, again, trying to look at it big picture, how does it ultimately, is it really going to benefit the American people? And to me, AI is great, it's convenient, but is it doing more good than harm? I don't think so. I think it's doing more harm than it is good.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What about if somebody creates a new business using AI?
Mm-hmm.
Does that not counteract and this is kind of my argument with why abortion has to stop. We have to end it, because what are you destroying? There's a guy, Ronald Barnett, on X, and he makes the point that we're trillionaires. Each and every one of us, we are worth trillions, and we don't even understand why. Now, the government, I think, prices this out in terms of, with this maritime law, the chattel stuff. I think we are actually priced at a few, like 13 million. And my son was trying to explain this to me, and I didn't quite get it, but I was very proud of him for looking into it. But he said in the free market, like a black market, a human is actually worth like many more million than whether the government prices us, which is fascinating. And why he understands that stuff, I have no idea. But
I know, I'm like, how old is he?
He's 14, and I grew him up with he grew up with Tuttle Twins books.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan?
Yeah, I just ordered them like this past year, so yeah, I am a fan.
Connor Boyack is one of my big heroes.
Yeah, and, I think great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But that idea that we're trillionaires and each person is going to create. There's no. It's endless. It's endless. What if Elon Musk had been aborted?
I know.
What if Donald Trump? What if these people, Massey, Paul? What if these people that we hold very dear to our hearts because we feel like they recognize the same things that we do, and they recognize that it's slipping away. The good things we fear are slipping away. Again, when I went out to eat, there was no animosity toward anyone. And no one in there was wearing a Trump shirt and disliking anybody. But we're fed, with our blue screens, we're fed this storyline that America is just not getting along. And you and I talk about it in agreement. And if you have family members that do sit and watch a lot of Fox News, they get it. I mean, it's all about firing off that amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
So in this regard, number one, wouldn't these, I'm really bad about digressing. My brain just shoots off. But these small businesses that pop up, it's the same thing for them as it is for like a human life. You create something that can then turn into something else and turn into something else and branch off. And maybe you need widgets for whatever it was you created, and someone else recognizes that they can do it at a cheap price. So does AI not lead to that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I opened up my med spa in the past year, I did both.
Where is your med spa? Plug it.
Oh, it's Skin Integrity with Caroline. It's in Bullhead City off of Lakeside. And I do have a Facebook and some social media.
Okay.
I implemented some marketing and I implemented AI. And I will tell you that simultaneously, it's the human interaction, the human word of mouth that has created so much more success of my business than the AI.
I'll believe
So,
that.
you know, I do have the benefit that I don't have to pay an employee, so I do need to calculate that, but I can tell you already that it is the people and their word of mouth and their promotion and talking about me that has gotten me so much more than AI saving me paying an employee.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think ultimately, and it's just, again, it brings a better sense of community. You know, I had some people tell me, they're like, I don't want to deal with your AI. I want to deal, you know, I hear that a lot. We want to talk to you. We want to talk to a real person.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this craving. And again, in a primarily technologically influenced world where we're craving, you know, humans are not meant to be isolated or alone. That's a form of torture. You know, that's why in prison, that isolation is a form of torture. And it's very damaging to humanity. So I think our world is craving authentic human interaction.
I think you're right. That's what I miss about working in here, and I love the ladies that work in here now, but I didn't know that I needed it like I did. Just
Right.
meeting people, talking to them, and understanding, sharing oxygen. And so, yeah, I think you're exactly right.
The cell phone companies are now creating, and they're reverting back to the retro models where it's not so screen. It's like the old Nokia tank.
Yeah.
They're now bringing it back, saying that we're understanding that we want to get our children off of the screen. So we're building, you know, the old tank phone, or I don't know. I saw it. Maybe, I'm pretty sure it's true, but that's the idea. So there seems to be a recognition that technology has just overrun humanity, and it's not for really our benefit.
Yeah.
Yes, it's convenient. I love AI. You know, it saves me hours on research and whatnot, but you know, at what cost?
At what cost? And what is Mythos telling people? What are they using it for? Because this, I mean, he starts it out with, this is why we can now do this. And this is in 1979. So relay computers were too slow to do this data processing to where they could direct society. But the electronic computer, invented in 1946 by J. Presper Eckert and John W. Mauchly, filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming in 1947 by the mathematician Dantzig. He goes on. Immediately, the Rockefeller, who would have thought, Foundation got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. And you said that was, no, you said Navy.
The Navy.
Navy.
U.S. Navy. A little bit later.
Yeah. In 1952, the original grant period terminated, and a high-level meeting of the elite, now Cooper puts in Illuminati in his own notes, was held to determine the next phase of the social operations research. The Harvard Project had been very fruitful, as is borne out by the publication of some of its results in 1953, suggesting the feasibility of economic social engineering. And then they tell you exactly what paper they're talking about, that this is, you know, and that's what makes this really, really interesting is a lot of people say Cooper was a nut. A lot of people say he was controlled opposition. In stuff like Kabbalah Judaism, there's something called revelation of the method, where You're allowed to do things to a society as long as you put it out there, what you're up to. Could it be a part of that? I don't know. I have no idea. And supposedly a lot of these secret societies follow some of this Kabbalah type stuff. I don't know if it's true or not. But there's citations here. There's citations here. Engineered in the last half of the decade of the 1940s, the new quiet war machine stood, so to speak, in a sparkling gold-plated hardware on the showroom floor by 1954. With the creation of the Maser in 1954, the promise of unlocking unlimited sources of fusion atomic energy. I haven't gone into this yet because I don't understand it.
I know.
I'm so dumb. But I know a lot of the people that are into the QAnon stuff. A lot of the QAnon stuff talked about there's energy sources out there. There's abundance that we can't fathom. And isn't that an interesting idea, given that we have been told by Trump that we're about to enter a golden age, by Elon that we're entering an age of abundance. His fear is that it could lead to mouse utopia, whether or not, I don't know. But right here, it's saying that these things exist that could bring about some kind of crazy changes. I don't know. It's very interesting, and it's interesting that in the very next chapter, he mentions AIDS being lab grown and weaponized. And I thought, goodness gracious, is this not something else? He blames Jesuits for a lot of the problems, which there's a group called, they want to reinstate the Republic. And I joined it, and it's been interesting. I don't know. I get bored. But their books blame everything on the Jesuits, which is fascinating. But everybody needs a villain.
Yeah.
Everybody needs
somebody
a villain.
has to be at fault.
And the fact of the matter is usually there's people that have money and power and want to keep it. And some of them have zero sense of ethics. I forget what the percentage of CEOs I think are literal psychopaths. And so when you get somebody like Amande, who is trying to, he says we have to be the best. We have to have the best AI in order to counteract AI by the CCP.
Yeah, China.
So how? But that this AI is going to be so great that it's going to take all the jobs, and people are going to there's going to be an uprising if we don't do something about it. So what's his? He's got a plan. His plan is to tax billionaires, implement something like what they're trying to do in California, a billionaire tax. So he wants to implement socialism and communism in order to fight the communists. Is he dumb? No. He's probably a psychopath that could give a shit what actually happens to the American economy. Because if you're an intelligent person, you understand economics. You understand free market systems are what brought about anything that we have that's nice. And yet here we're being sold this. So thank you for coming in and listening to me talk.
Yeah, no, of course. I always learn. I feel like I talk before, and then as soon as I'm on camera, I'm like, we can't talk. Can't talk.
No, you are. When off camera, you're very you're a little more talkative. You're a little more talkative, and I understand that you've run a race now. You know that anything and everything can be picked apart. So
and will be held against you.
And yeah, and I know that. Yeah. I hope I haven't put you on the spot or said anything. I mean, you did mention that you bought Mein Kampf, and that is, you don't care. You're like, bring it on.
Yeah.
You're willing to read words that you don't agree with? Even written by bad people? You don't think that Mein Kampf is gonna? There's a Norm Macdonald. He brought this up a lot. That someone said, if you could go back in time, would you kill Hitler if you had the chance? He said, no, I'm too scared that I would look into his eyes and suddenly it would overcome me and I would become a white supremacist or something like that. And making fun of the fact that it's so taboo. His name, before Trump, to even bring up his name is so taboo at this point that you're not supposed to have bought that book. You realize that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to have read his words. How did we get here? How did we get here?
The boiling frog. It's really all, but not in a greed kind of way. And actually, I was gonna the discussion we were just having. Again, like, so is AI? Is it really beneficial for us on an economic level? And it's going to wipe out realtors, lawyers, doctors. We're not going to need jobs. We're not going to need people. So who is it really benefiting?
Well, I would say that those people would then probably, I mean, they kind of said this. You've heard of the Luddites.
Mm-hmm.
They said this during the Industrial Revolution as well. But maybe there's an argument to be made that humans were better off. I mean, now we have viruses flying around that were made in petri dishes by psychopaths that just felt like they were doing the right thing. Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing, no matter what they're doing.
Right.
So maybe there's a point. I don't know. There's what's the C.S. Lewis book? There's a C.S. Lewis book.
Oh, also a hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Believer.
Hideous Strength, My Hideous Strength. I think it's something about hideous strength, and the book, That Hideous Strength. The book is about science. Do we really actually need to keep pushing things forward, or is the Bible accurate that God gave us everything we need? And no one loves us more than God. No one. No entity, no person, nothing loves us more than Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Ever could. Nothing ever could. And yet we are obsessed with trying to bring about this utopia.
Well, that's because humans have an insatiable need, So I think it's natural, but then God gave us free will.
Yeah.
So we make a choice.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up? Thank you for sitting for 2 whole hours.
I know. No, it was fun. It's always very, again, still being a mom, and I'm surrounded by a 6-year-old and 11-year-old. So it's nice to get intellectual stimulation.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I would definitely, at some point, I would love to, maybe down the line, but I do plan on not necessarily continuing my dad's work, but bringing it like more to light. I definitely feel as though I have a more recognized platform than my dad ever did, and he should have.
Mm-hmm.
He should have had the platform, but he wasn't really about that. He was
down to business.
He was in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and then he got down to business,
Mm-hmm.
and he seemed honest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll film myself walk over and turn this off because I'm the only person working on my show. Thank you very much, Caroline Strecker. All right.